Hey everyone, I'm Jason Weiser.
And I'm Carissa Weiser.
And you may know us from our award-winning podcast, Myths and Legends, but now we've partnered with Cast Media to create a new podcast called Scoundrel, History's Forgotten Villains, a series that tells the true stories of some of yesterday's most fascinating, forgotten bad guys.
For example, you'll follow the career of Sidney Gottlieb, not only learning that through Sidney and his CIA team, the U.S. literally sanctioned mind control experiments and torture. But the story will open a window allowing you to really feel what Cold War America was like.
Each episode will feature a new villain and a new time period you may not have heard about, but really should.
So if you like crime, evildoers, and the darker parts of history, join us on Cast Media's new podcast, Scoundrel, History's Forgotten Villains, every week, wherever you get your podcasts.
You're watching Middle Georgia's news leader, WGXA-TV, Channel 24, Macon.
The Spirit on 24.
This is the News 24 Late Report.
Lives on hold for a quarter century as Milt and Gail Coleman waited for a break in the murder case of their daughter, Rhonda Sue. The 18-year-old senior didn't usually go out on a school night. May 17, 1990 was special. She was working on a senior flag with classmates as graduation approached at Jeff Davis High School in Hazlehurst. The disappearance drew a frantic search and national attention. But a few days later, in an area very similar to this one, a man found Rhonda Sue's body. Now, there's a new push on the case to find Rhonda Sue's killer.
For 30 years after the abduction and murder of Rhonda Sue Coleman, her parents, Milton and Gail, struggled to cope with the loss of their only child. They struggled to move on and live normal lives. Mostly, though, they struggled to find answers. Who killed Rhonda and why? The perfect life they once had was no longer their reality. That life was gone. Their entire world had changed. And Gail, in particular, was having trouble accepting her loss.
I had to do a stint in the hospital in Brunswick. After it, I had to go down there, stay a while to get my bearings.
A close family friend of the Colemans, Darlene Jacobs, remembers this time well. She was actually at the Coleman's house on the night of Rhonda's disappearance.
After that first 2 months after Rhonda died, I never believed Gail would live. She had no will to live. It was hard on Milton, but he was trying to be strong for her. I never really felt like Milton had the chance to grieve. But Gail just had such a hard time, and we tried to do everything we could to keep her distracted because we honestly thought she was going to commit suicide.
And it wasn't just the Colemans' lives that changed. It seemed as if the entire town of Hazlehurst had changed too. For a time, Gail avoided even going into town if she could, because everyone she saw wanted to offer a kind word or their condolences. And though they meant well, it was a constant reminder of Rhonda.
Well, I hated to go to town. Didn't go to town for a long time because you could see the pity. You could see how you doing? You doing all right today? And then they meant no harm. They meant no harm. But, I just didn't want that. I had enough on me. Couldn't tote theirs too, their hurt or whatever. So I tried to stay away from town.
She couldn't escape this and tried to drown out the outside world. She finally returned to work as Milton had tried to do earlier.
When I went back to work, that was the hardest thing. That was hard. Because to get to my office, I had to go through the front office and get the mail, walk through the plant. You just see people looking at you, just pitiful. I'm sorry, she looks terrible. It's not their fault. They just felt they were hurting too, because my job, and we were a family down there, And Milton's job too. I mean, great guys up there.
Well, I tried, if I got something on my mind, if I could stay busy, my hands do something. It keeps it off of my mind. And I tried to stay busy, While Gail was at work, I was at work, but I pretty much stayed close to home too,
As the weeks and months drudged on, the enormous stress took a toll on their marriage as well.
Yeah, we had our rough times. Yeah, we had our rough times. But you go back and look statistically, anybody that loses a child, a lot of them divorces. And it's usually 2 to 3 years down the road.
For me, it wasn't. For me, it was like the nest was empty. I mean, it's him and me, and she's not going to come through that door, and it's not going to be like it was. It's not, it's like just, you burn your house down and you put up a tent. Totally different.
But Milton and Gail beat the odds. They leaned on each other in hard times, comforted one another on bad days, and stumbled through the uncertainty together to remain the happy, love-filled couple they still are today. But the elephant is still, and always has been, in the room. The unanswered questions that hang over the Colemans like a black cloud, following them with every step they take. Who killed Rhonda, and why?
Hopefully somebody will come forward and we can get some closure, find out who did it, get it behind us. We're both not getting any younger. We're getting on up in age, and we'd like to see some closure before we pass away.
To try and answer these questions, we've got to go back to the beginning, the night of Rhonda's disappearance. We need to find out what happened after she was abducted. Why was her body found some 15 miles away in a neighboring county? Why had she been set on fire? And what happened to the fox hunters who heard the scream? My plan here is to start with a completely fresh set of eyes and ears, looking at all the information I can gain access to and interview anyone who'll speak with me. Who knows? Maybe someone will slip up. Maybe something has been overlooked. Maybe someone will confide in me and tell me something they've never shared with anyone before, even if it's solely because I'm not in law enforcement. Maybe the new attention brought to Rhonda's murder might finally be too much for someone's conscience to bear. In the days and weeks following Rhonda's murder, several suspects were questioned, but no arrests were made. Whoever the killer or killers were, they still may run free. They may still be living in Hazlehurst, and in a town as small as Hazlehurst, it's highly unlikely, if not altogether impossible, that you could abduct and murder someone and not have someone know something. People talk, especially in small towns. There is no sense of the anonymity you might find in a big city, and everyone seems to think they know who did it and why. But someone out there knows the truth. And that's exactly what I'm counting on.
I knew Rhonda was, I'm sure you realize now Hazlehurst is a very small town. And Rhonda and I both lived out in the country, not in the, city limits. We're out in the country. And I think Rhonda was probably, I want to say she was 1.5 miles, or at most 2 miles. In country terms, that's really close. That's, that's like a couple blocks, right?
That's Layla Miller Marshall, though in 1990 there was no Marshall in her name. She was a senior in Rhonda's class at Jeff Davis High School and a childhood friend of Rhonda's.
Being a small town, my parents knew her parents, and, I've known her, I'd say, probably all my life. We were friends, but now we were not like best friends. We just were in different friend groups, but we were always friends, and we did have classes and stuff together. Our senior year, particularly, we became closer just because it's a small, growing up in a small town, we're graduating. So as seniors, we started the class started doing more things together.
I decided that the best way to understand what happened the night of Rhonda's abduction was to speak with someone who was there. And a good place to start was with Layla, because she found Rhonda's abandoned car on the side of the road.
I probably got off at 8 or 9, not sure. My boyfriend at the time lived in town, so after work, I went to see him at his house. So I was at his house for a little while, and then I left to drive home. And Rhonda and I both lived off the Bell Telephone Road. There was a little dirt road right off the Bell Telephone Road where her house was. I'm driving home. I see just pulled off the road, like off a little dirt road. There's a car that's just parked there. It's running, lights on, and the door open. And that's really what caught my eye at first. Just that it wasn't moving, you know what I mean? Like it was like somebody pulled off, but they didn't continue on. So, and the door open, like, you know, it caught my eye. And as I drove past it, because I kept going, I'm looking at it and I realized it's Rhonda's car, I think it's Rhonda's car. I turn around to go back, and I realized it is Rhonda's car. And I think I knew that because she had like a little stuffed Garfield, so I could see that. So I knew it was her car, so I pulled up, and I get out, and I don't see her. I call for her, and I look in the car. Like I said, the car's still running, but there's no sign of her.
Layla immediately starts looking for Rhonda on the dark dirt road and calling out her name.
So there was a ditch, like, with some trees on the other side of the car. So I walked over there because I started thinking that maybe, because I knew they had the flag party, I thought, well, maybe she drank and she's sick, or maybe she's using I don't know, whatever. I walk over there and I call out for her, and she doesn't answer. I go back to her car, turn it off, shut the door, and lock it. And at this time, we do not have cell phones. So I'm closer to my boyfriend's house than my parents' house. So I drive back to my boyfriend's house, and I do what every good Southern girl does. I call my mother. Of course, my mother told me to call 911. I call the police, and then my boyfriend and I go out. We went in his truck to go out there back to where her car is to wait for the police to come.
Layla and her boyfriend went back out to Rhonda's car, but no police arrived after they waited for nearly half an hour.
We waited maybe 20, 30 minutes. They didn't come, so we went back to his house, called again. They said they sent somebody out there, but they said, well, they couldn't find you or know where you're talking. I don't know. We go back out.
It would be just over an hour before the first deputy, Leroy Sanders, arrived. Why, in this tiny little town, did it take so long for the police to arrive? Rhonda's car was only a few miles from downtown, where the police station is located.
Now, this is where I don't know if this is my memory playing with me or if this is how it was. It seems very quickly there was a lot of people there. Like, once Leroy got there, it seems like maybe another deputy. I don't know if he called somebody or somebody, just another deputy. It seems like another police person came, and from there, it seems like then it was clear there's a problem. You know what I mean? Like, whoa, that was kind of overwhelming. While this is going on, we're, all these police people are here and they're questioning me and they're doing whatever, all the stuff they're doing. Milton, Rhonda's father, pulled up.
Milton pulled in because he saw flashing blue police lights in Rhonda's car, thinking maybe she had been in an accident.
So when I think about the night, this is what sticks out over really anything of that whole night. He did walk up to me and he said, Layla, where's Rhonda? And I said, I don't know. I just vividly remember his eyes just filling up with water, just blue eyes. I just remember blue eyes and just all of a sudden. And I think that was my first, and I know this sounds weird, but very nice. I mean, we grew up in a very small town. You didn't lock your doors. You left your keys in your car, just stuff like that. I think it wasn't until that moment when, even though the police were like everywhere, swarming, doing all this stuff, I think it was then when it hit me that something was wrong. Like, really wrong.
This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. We talk about BetterHelp a lot on this show. And this month, we're discussing some of the stigmas around mental health. Many people think that therapy is for so-called crazy people, but therapy doesn't mean something's wrong with you. It just means you recognize that all humans have emotions, and we need to learn to control them, not avoid them. We've also been taught that mental health shouldn't be a part of normal life, but that's wrong too. We take care of our bodies with the gym, the doctor, and nutrition, and we should focus on our minds just as much. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can be matched with a therapist in under 48 hours. Give it a try and see why over 2 million people have used BetterHelp online therapy. And Fox Hunter listeners get 10% off their first month at BetterHelp.com/FoxHunter. That's BetterHelp.com/FoxHunter. How many free trial subscriptions end up costing you hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, long after forgetting to cancel? Fight back against scammy subscriptions with Truebill. Truebill is the new app that helps you identify and stop paying for subscriptions you don't need, want, or simply forgot about. On average, people save up to $720 per year with Truebill. Because companies make subscriptions so hard to cancel, Truebill makes it incredibly simple. Just link your accounts, and Truebill will cancel your unwanted subscriptions in one tap. And your Truebill concierge is there when you need them to cancel any unwanted subscriptions so you don't have to. Truebill has over 2 million users and helped save them over $100 million. Like Jennifer B., who says, "With your help, our family has saved $587 per year on unnecessary subscriptions. I really didn't understand how Truebill could help me until we decided to save for a very large home purchase." So don't fall for subscription scams. Start canceling today at Truebill.com/truecrime. Go right now. Truebill.com/truecrime. It could save you thousands a year. Truebill.com/truecrime.
The police found their first piece of evidence, the footprints leading from Rhonda's car to another set of tire tracks near the main road, less than 50 feet away.
There was 3 sets of tracks. Leroy's track, Layla Miller, when she first got there, she switched the car off, and Rhonda's. But Rhonda's right foot turned out just a little. She walked to the driver's side of the vehicle. And you could tell when she stepped around a couple of steps there, and she walked around to the right side of the vehicle.
Rhonda's unique footprints, she walked with her right foot turned slightly outward, led from her car to the driver's side of this other mystery vehicle, which had been parked behind her at a 90-degree angle. The white Keds she had been wearing then led around to the passenger side of that vehicle and disappeared. And she may have gotten into that vehicle on her own, the way there were no signs of a struggle.
She got out of her car and she walked to the highway, and she walked, the dirt road, you see her little tracks, and it goes highway, and that's it. There's no tracks going to her car. There's no tracks back and forth. I mean, it's truly, she got out of her car and walked to whoever.
But why would she get into the car with this person, whoever it was, unless...
So it's definitely somebody she knew.
Is this the logical explanation here? That she could have known the person who did this to her? But still, why would she stop at night when she was already running late for her curfew, which she never missed?
Back then, one of the things we did, we had this little strip that in town that we would just circle, drive from one end to the other or whatever. So we'd do that, and lots of times you would blink your lights, like, hey, pull, if you wanted somebody to pull over and get in a parking lot and chat or whatever. I don't think I would ever get out of the car and walk to somebody I did not know. Like, once I pulled over, I can't imagine getting out of the car and walking to somebody that I did not know.
It makes perfect sense. And so far, it's maybe the only thing that makes sense to me. Everyone I've spoken to believes that Rhonda almost certainly knew the person who abducted her. And who would the most likely suspects be in a situation like this? People typically commit murder for one of 3 reasons: jealousy, money, or revenge. If we explore these avenues, we may end up with at least one suspect. But Ronda was a teenager, and the Colemans were a working-class family. They weren't rich, so it's not likely financially motivated. And Ronda was seemingly well-liked by everyone I've talked to. She was popular, and she didn't seem to have any enemies. So is revenge a real possibility? That leaves jealousy. But who would be jealous enough of Ronda to kill her?
I think an ex-boyfriend figures into this picture right here.
The ex-boyfriend, Greg. And I'm only going to use first names of any of the names that I'm given to protect their privacy for now. On the night of Rhonda's disappearance, Greg's name was the first to cross Milton's mind. And when I asked the Colemans if Greg was a jealous guy...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Very.
And they had been broke up about a month at this time.
The Colemans go on to tell me that Ronda had recently broken it off with Greg because he'd become jealous and possessive towards her.
He had to be jealous and call me, want me to make her start dating again.
Okay, so I can see how a father would have some issues with his daughter's ex-boyfriend calling and asking to make her get back together with him. But is there more than that?
Greg had told Rhonda not to wear her bikini around her daddy.
Yeah, okay. This is a different level, though. Why would he say such a thing?
Told her to not be wearing that bikini around her daddy, and she's asking, well, what you want me to do? Put you on a t-shirt.
Look, being jealous or uncomfortable with your girlfriend wearing a bikini around her father at her own swimming pool is definitely unusual, to say the least. But as we continue talking, I learned that things got even more unusual. When Greg's name came to Milton's mind on the night of Rhonda's disappearance, he and Deputy Sanders made a visit to Greg's house, not far away, to ask if he'd seen her.
And this was neighborhood of 1 o'clock, 1:45. We went by his house because, I told Leroy what had happened by him calling, and he says, well, let's go by his house. And he said, you know where he lives at? And I said, yeah, he lives right here on Hughes Street. So we went by the house, and Leroy told me to stay in the car, and he went up there and knocked on the door. Well, his mama, there was a light on in the house, so his mama come to the door. And he asked, was Greg home? And she said, yes, he's in the bed. He said, I need to speak with him. Well, I'm not getting him up. He's got to work tomorrow. She wouldn't get him out of the bed.
The police knocked on his door at roughly 1 a.m., asking to speak with Greg because his recent ex-girlfriend, the one he desperately wants to get back together with, was missing, and his mother wouldn't go get him because he had to work in the morning. I reached out to Deputy Sanders to get the official recording of this account, but I haven't heard back yet.
We found that odd. The next morning, he shows up here at the house about 8:30, 8:45, and does not leave this house till Sunday afternoon, from Friday to Sunday.
Greg stayed at the Coleman's house and did not leave until Sunday afternoon. Strangely, he didn't help in the search party. He didn't pass out flyers. He didn't make phone calls looking for Rhonda. He just cried. It's understandable to be upset, but wouldn't you be doing everything in your power to try to find Rhonda, this young girl you loved and wanted to be with? Greg's behavior seemed odd to some other family members who were at the Coleman's house that weekend. I spoke about this with one of Rhonda's first cousins, Connie Bennett.
So we had left and went somewhere, and when we came back, Greg was there, propped upside the house, and just was boo-hooing, just crying. And, naturally, we jumped out of the car to find, we're like, what's going on? Has she been found? And he was like, no, I'm just so upset. And it just didn't, I don't know, I guess now stopping and thinking the way he was so upset, it didn't make no sense. Because nobody knew where she was at or what had happened, but the way he was crying and carrying on, it was, like I said, when we pulled it and seen the way he was carrying on, we really thought that, that she had been found and that something had happened to her. And I remember my mama telling him, Greg,
go with them and go help find Rhonda, go search. But he would not. He would not leave.
Connie keeps mentioning that it was odd that Greg wouldn't leave, even to help in the search, for a specific reason. By this time, police had made a plaster cast of the mystery vehicle's tire track, the one left at the site of the abduction, and had begun to trace exactly what kind of tire it was and where it might have been sold, or who it might have been sold to. In 1990, several years before the internet and desktop computers were common, even in police stations, this process took longer than it might today. Now, all that kind of information is held in computers or easily accessible online. And it's by sheer luck that they were even able to get this plaster cast with all the people and vehicles at the crime scene the night it happened, destroying most of the physical evidence before it was officially a crime scene. The cast was actually made from an undisturbed area that was underneath Milton's parked truck that night. Police were confident that the tires were from a pickup truck and set up roadblocks nearby the scene to question drivers of trucks that might provide a match.
And this is when the law had set up down the road from Gail and Milton's, and they was checking tire prints from everybody coming and going out there that Sunday afternoon, that Sunday evening.
Before the police had set up roadblocks and begun to check tires, Greg did offer to take Connie home to find her father, and the two left together in his truck. She remembers this vividly.
I remember that the law came out there and told them that Rhonda had been found.
Geico asks, how would you love a chance to save some money on insurance? Well, of course you would. After all, who doesn't love a great deal, right? And when it comes to great rates on insurance for all the things in your life, Geico can help. Like with insurance for your car, truck, motorcycle, boat, and RV. Even help with homeowners, condo, or renters coverage. You could save even more with a special discount when you bundle your coverages. Plus, the easy-to-use Geico mobile app available 24-hour roadside assistance and more. And choosing to switch to Geico becomes an easy choice. Switch today and see all the ways you can save with great rates and discounts. It's easy. Simply go to geico.com to get a rate quote or contact your local agent and get started seeing how much you could save. We all want love, that happily ever after feeling of finding your soulmate. What if someone not only claimed they could help you find that perfect partner, they guaranteed it? Jeff and Shalia, a young couple famous on YouTube, teach about twin flames, a deep romantic connection with your perfect ultimate partner in their videos. It's a divine love. You're designed for no one else, and they're designed for no one else. But the path to finding your twin flame isn't so simple. Those who start to doubt the group are instructed to cut ties with friends and family that are holding them back and to corner and claim their twin flame through stalking and intimidation. By the time some members are able to leave the group, they don't even recognize themselves, and the harassment to rejoin makes them fear for their safety. From Wondery, Twin Flames is a podcast about what happens when the quest for love turns into a dangerous obsession. Follow Twin Flames on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or you can listen early and ad-free by subscribing to Wondery Plus in Apple Podcasts or the Wondery app.
My mama was trying to get in touch with my daddy to tell my daddy he needed to come over there, because Rhonda had been found. But back then we didn't have cell phones, and Daddy was out working out there at the shop working or in the field. I honestly believe he was out there putting barbed wire fence up because of the horses, but we couldn't get in touch with him. Well, Greg did offer to take me over there to tell Daddy he needed to come to Gallon Mountain. And I can tell you the exact spot where we were at in that vehicle when he told me that he saw Rhonda Thursday night, that he was sitting at the road there by Hardy's when Rhonda was up there at Swanee Swifty, and he seen her, and he wanted to talk to her because she had got mad at him because he had kept calling her and bothering her. But while she was at home that Thursday night before she left to go to town, her and Milton was trying to talk, about her plans and all that.
The Hardee's that Connie mentioned was next to the Swanee Swifty, a small convenience store in downtown Hazlehurst.
And he says, I've seen her at Swanee Swifty. He says, and I wanted to pull over there and talk to her. He says, I wanted to stop her. He said, but I know she was mad at me.
Connie said Rhonda was mad at Greg because he'd been repeatedly calling her house that Thursday night. Milton and Gail said the same.
And at that time, you don't think about nothing. All I know right then is that my best friend has been killed. My sister, my cousin. But like I said, I can tell you exactly when those words came out his mouth where we was at on that highway going to my mom and daddy's house when he told me that.
So according to Connie, Greg said he saw Rhonda just minutes before her abduction. The timeline of events on the night of Rhonda's disappearance is as follows. She left her parents' house around 7 p.m., stopped at the Swanee Swifty, and left her car there, riding to the party instead with a few friends. She left the party at around 10:15 p.m. with the same friends and was dropped off at her car around 10:25 p.m. She went across the street to the Hardee's drive-thru to get a Coke and then headed for home. Just 20 minutes later, Layla Miller found Rhonda's abandoned car at approximately 10:45 p.m. This means that somewhere between 10:25 and 10:45 p.m., Rhonda was abducted.
He had a gas can in his truck, in the back of his truck.
Remember that when they found Rhonda's body, she had been set on fire after her murder.
He said something other before we left, something about some gas he had to have, and he had the gas can in his truck, and he had put gas out of that gas can into his truck. And we got over there to my daddy's house, or to mom and daddy's, and told them, and then we went back, everything. Everything was just chaos. Chaos. Something was said about Greg going to go home, and he said, my daddy's coming to get me. My mama is real sick, and my daddy's got to come get me. And I said, well, why is your daddy going to come get you? Why don't you drive home? Well, he's just going to come out here and pick me up. And like I said, he has said all this time that his mama was extremely sick. Oh, she got real bad sick. And, but then his daddy was coming to pick him up. And that never made good sense to me. If this lady is so sick, why is her husband leaving to come out here to pick, when he's got a vehicle sitting right here?
Greg's mother may have felt well enough to answer the door the night before when Deputy Sanders and Milton went to their house. Milton didn't remember her seeming to be ill. He just said she was a little abrasive and not very helpful. It wasn't until a few days later that these odd threads of memories started standing out. Greg left his truck on the Coleman's property for days. But why didn't he want to drive it home?
I want to say, Sean, that it may have even stayed out there to after the funeral. Yeah, and I have always said that that is who I feel like killed Rhonda. I don't feel like he killed Rhonda intentionally. I think that he seen Rhonda, and when he seen Rhonda pull out, he followed Rhonda, and Rhonda being Rhonda.
Rhonda could be hot-tempered at times. She was feisty and always stood her ground. Her hot-headedness and temper could have gotten her into a bad situation with the wrong person. But that doesn't mean she asked for what happened to her. Rhonda did not deserve to die.
And this is the hot-headedness that I was talking about earlier. I can see Greg, trying to stop her, and she pulls over, going to chew him out. Because that was just how she was. She broke a guy's, a boy's nose at school, hit him in the nose and broke his nose. Yeah, but he wasn't. He was picking at, and I don't remember what grade she was in at that, but it was at high school. But I just remembered that that this guy, that boy just kept aggravating, picking at her, and Milton had done went up there to the school and had a time, and then Milton just told he says, well, you just do what you got to do, baby. And he messed with her again, and she turned around and bopped him in the nose and broke his nose. And then Milton had to go to the school because they was going to discipline her, and but I mean, that right there, that's just that hot-headedness, and that's what I can see. I can see Rhonda, pulling over, going to give him a piece of her mind, leave me alone. Why don't you just go on? And, and I feel like that's, where everything went out of control. I honestly and truly believe that it was not intention for her to be killed. I think that it was an accident, and then when the accident happened, they panicked.
A number of sources I interviewed in Hazlehurst feel that Greg had some involvement. The jealousy, the truck, the gas can, the odd behavior, it all feels suspicious. But if you listen to the very last thing that Connie said,
and then when the accident happened, they panicked.
They panicked.
Rhonda, you gon' fight. That's just your instinct, is to fight. If somebody's holding you down and holding your nose and holding your mouth, so it makes you wonder, okay, is there another person in there? Because I know that has been said, well, that it had to be two people, because it took two people to hold her down. And I believe that.
Darlene Jacobs echoed similar thoughts as Connie.
So it's somebody that she knew. I know it. And it's more than one somebody. I'm going to tell you, I know she could fight. She's kind of easy going for a while, but when you got her stirred up, you had a tiger on your hands. No one person could have handled her.
Was there a second person involved?
They say one, I say two. I always said two from day one. Greg and John.
Coming up on Fox Hunter.
And I did tell him, I said, if I know that you killed Ronda, I said, I'd take this gas hose and I would set you on fire just like you set her on fire.
And there was an instance after this case where Rhonda Coleman was killed, him with another girlfriend, and we video and audio taped his interview, and he had taken a pair of scissors and threatened to kill a girl after that. All in all, they said, he's a guy.
Fox Hunter is a production of Imperative Entertainment. It was created, written, and reported by me, Sean Kipe, and I wrote the original music score. Executive producers are Jason Hoke and Gino Falsetto. Story editor is Jason Hoke. Sound engineering by Shane Freeman. Key cover art provided by Joe Freeman Jr. Keychalis 9032 2015. JoeFreemanJr.com. Fox Hunter is a 10-episode series available every Tuesday morning. Follow us on social media at Fox Hunter Podcast. If you like the show, leave us a review and tell your friends. Thanks for listening.